Welcome. Welcome to this presentation about this critical reading inventory and the recapitulation record, because we're putting that under the microscope. Why? We need to know where we're headed. And we're headed for the recapitulation record with certain assumptions. You're familiar with the manual and all the terms. What do you know about word recognition? First of all, when you do the word list, that's not real reading. These are isolated words, first in a flash to give you insight to sight vocabulary. The untimed gives you insight into word analysis, but then real reading comes in the form of, for word rec, miscue analysis. You've done the oral reading and you have 2 scores created. The Reading Accuracy Index, or RAI, and the Meaning Maintenance Index, MMI. Then we have oral and silent comprehension. 3 types of questions for each, retelling for each story, and finally, all of this data is used to help us have insights into reading levels. So, let's look at the recapitulation record. Noticing that we have a student who is in 6th grade, all right? Here we have all the results from 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grades, but notice we're going to look a little bit in this presentation at level 1 numerical interpretation. Let's move on to zooming in on word recognition. And where do we look? We look first at the word list, the flash. We look at these scores, noticing that at the 6th grade we have a score of 85. 7th, 80. 8th grade, we're back up to 85. 9th, 70. So we have some inconsistency as the student finds the task a little bit more difficult. What about the untimed information about word analysis? So we have obviously our hundreds here. But notice at the 6th grade we have an improvement. 7th grade we have an improvement, and 8th grade. So again, this seems to be that there's inconsistency, but clearly some signs of pretty good word analysis skills. That takes us to the Reading Accuracy Index. And folks, look at this. Very, very good. Notice the MMI. Same thing, 100, 100. This time we have 100, so we have 3 100s and 199. So, shouting out loudly, I'm strong in contextual reading, I probably have pretty good fluency. But now we need to look at the comprehension. We have a 90 and a 70 for the 5th grade. So we're okay with that. But let's look at 6th grade, where we have 60%. So now that's a concern. And now let's look at the whole picture. Concern about the 85 flash. Good signs about word analysis, but they clearly need to be better. But once we get to contextual reading, as evidenced by RAI and MMI, we have a good picture here. So, let's look at the oral comprehension that connects with it. Where do we look? Right here, oral comprehension. 4th grade, we had a score of 90. Solid, clearly independent. 5th grade, clearly instructional. But when we get to 6th, that's the first sign of a red flag concern. 7th, we see frustration. So, let's zoom in on the question type. So we have here the text base, 4 of 4, 3 of 4, and 3 of 4. 3 of 4. Pretty solid. Inference, 3 of 3, 2 of 3. Solid. But here, look at this. 1 of 3, back up to 2 of 3. So this inconsistency may be a flag that says, interest is high with me. Good idea to remember. Critical response. 2 of 3, 2 of 3, 2 of 3. Solid when he was independent instructional and near instructional. But look at what happened at frustration level. 50 comprehension, no critical response items on that. Remember, 4th, 5th, and 6th, if we had the text-based, 83% of all text-based. 6.9, 67% of all inference, and 67% of all critical response. That's good. That's almost 70%. So we're comfortable there. What if we combined all 4 grade levels? We would have 13 of 16, which is 81%. 8 of 12, that's 67%. 6 of 12, folks, now we drop 50%. So we've got some uncertainties because of the inconsistency in this student's performance. So what's the analysis going to be like? For word list, flash and untimed is isolated. We realize that we should avoid isolated word learning here. We need to develop sight vocabulary, but not through isolating it. What about his contextual word recognition skills? Strong at all levels tested. Look at that. So that you have an MMI, 100, 100, 199. Phenomenal. Comprehension versus the MMI, because what good is a strong MMI if you don't have comprehension to correspond with that? We have signs of frustration beginning at 6th grade, where 4th we had the 90, 5th we had the 70, but 6th, 60, and 7th, clearly frustration. Question type, on the other hand, text is solid. 10 of 12 or 83 through 6th grade, but all text-based 81%. Inference, keeping in mind that this is near instruction, 67% through 6th grade. Even 67% when you had all of them combined. So inferences, reading inferences, are pretty good with this student. Critical response, we have some concern here. Inconsistency is the basis of our concern. 6 of 9 or 67 if you look at just the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. When you combine them, we have 50%. All right? Now, we need to zoom in on silent reading. What do we have? 4th grade, 100. Folks, independent. That's a great sign. But my goodness, look at here. Light bulbs are popping. We have a concern. 5th grade, this is a 6th grade student. 5th grade with frustration, followed by frustration at 6th grade's own level, and even lower for 7th grade. And how did that contrast? Let's remember. We had 90. This is exciting because at the 4th grade, which is independent level, he's stronger with silent. But as the material becomes more difficult, you'll see it here on the silent, his oral reading becomes higher in its scoring than does the silent. Is that a sign that he benefits from the modalities of reading out loud and hearing what he's saying? So, let's zoom in now on question type. First, we're going to look at text-based for silent comprehension. Look at what we have here. 4 of 4, 3 of 4, 3 of 4. Solid as a rock, folks. So move to inference. 3 of 3, 4th and 5th grades strong. 6th grades are concerned 1 of 3, and 7th grade, 0 of 3. So that takes us to the critical response items. 3 of 3. But look at this. 5th grade, 0 of 3, 1 of 3, and now 2 of 3. So if we combine those, we're looking at 10 of 12, or 83%. 6 of 9, we know that's 67%. 4 of 9 is 44%. So critical response here has a question mark. But if we combine them all now, if we have 12 of 16, we've got 75%. 6 of 12, again, 50%. 6 of 12, 50%. Remember the comprehension scores, though. That oral comprehension, starting with 5th grade, was higher than silent. And that's a concern. So what's the analysis? Let's look at comprehension. Higher scores for both comprehension and retelling were following oral reading. And we have to keep in mind that it's silent reading, that's authentic reading. The drop began at 5th grade and continued all the way through. 7th grade was clear frustration for this student, silently. Question type, again, solid as a rock with text-based. And I want you to notice this sentence here. This student would never be considered a struggling reader if he were in a classroom that relied heavily on text-based questions. That triggers, has this happened to him? Is he successful with text-based because that's what his instruction has been made on? Inference, folks, inconsistent. Remember we said if we looked at only the levels above frustration, we had 67. If we included all, we had 50%. Critical response, though, is weak. If we look at the 3 levels above frustration, we're dealing with 44%. All of them, we're dealing with 50%. What's our question? Since he had 2 of 3 for critical response correct at 7th grade, we have a question. Does this student respond to interest? We don't know, but we could look here, folks. Look at the oral scores. 2, 1.5, 1, and 0.5. Contrast those with silent. This is higher than this. 1.5 higher than 0. 1 higher than 0.5. But watch what happened at 7th. 0.5 following oral, but 1 that matched his highest during silent. So again, there's some indication this student responds to interest. His average was 1.5 following oral and 0.5 if you looked at the grades above his frustration. With that, 1.25 and 0.6. So we know we need to work on developing retelling abilities. Why? Let's analyze this. It's all based on text structure knowledge. In both narrative and expository text, success is linked with understanding of structure. So, if a student has difficulty detecting the major concepts of a text, or if that student omits the key ideas that are key to the message, we're going to have some difficulties with comprehension. So, let's look at the numerical data. Let's look now at reading levels. So what did we say about independent level? It's 4th grade. Notice the information. You get your flash and your the RAI and MMI. Here's where you have your comprehension and retelling scores, right? So you have oral comprehension of 90 with an MMI of 100. And here you have all the breakdown, question types, all solid. Clearly, this is level 1 numerical interpretation. Solid independent. Move on to instructional level. Again, we're looking at our flash untimed RAI-MMI. Solid. So we move to comprehension. Oral, pretty good. Silent, trouble. So our average here, and here's our average retelling. Look at this. Silent average of 0 for retelling at the 5th grade level. Now we look at the difference between oral comprehension and fluency. So we had a score of 16 for fluency, folks. That's solid as a rock. We had an MMI of 100, and we had a comprehension score of 70 following oral reading. When we look here at the question types, solid after oral reading, not as solid after silent reading, which takes us now to the 7th grade, which is frustration. So now when we go to the flash versus the MMI, we had an 80 versus a 95 and a 99 with a 99 MMI. Here is where we had our problem, oral, silent, and average. We have an average of 45 at the 7th grade level, clearly frustration. We had a retelling. Again, this is the one that stood out. So he has a higher average for retelling here. Oral comprehension, and see, remember we said, it's wonderful that this MMI is 99%. Fluency, contextual reading, strong. But if it doesn't result in comprehension, we have to intervene. And we look here to guide us. And we have, again, some pretty consistency in text base. It's higher level thinking where we need to help with this student. Because here, there's a lower, he's strong with the text base. He's strong with the MMI. His MMI and his RAI. But we need to develop sight vocabulary. So what recommendations are we going to have? Develop silent reading, folks. It's authentic reading. We need a powerful purpose. That purpose has to be linked to the theme of the passage so the student has a reason to read. We want to have collaboration with pre-reading strategies. We've had great success with an anticipation guide. We want to expand sight vocabulary, and we do that through heavy oral rereading. We want the student to be able to go to the text to find segments in the text that could support the answers that were given as part of the comprehension discussion. We need heavy silent reading, high interest textbooks. And of course, collaboration with post-reading strategies such as the question the author or discussion web. Wow, we're climbing to those stars. For now, we're saying goodbye, but folks, we hope to see you real soon.